Hey everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions, and been looking forward to this one. We we've got a very special, like a two-part episode that's going to take us over the long weekend, and I've got my good friend Bug Campbell back with me, rocking the TVC hoodie. Thank you, sir. Ah, back where it all began, unspooled. And Bug suggested this to me quite a few months ago. We're doing a countdown. It's like a countdown video of sorts, but for those of you that are younger and want to know where this came from, there's a whole story behind what Z-Rock was. And maybe people don't remember that, but I'm going to turn it over to Bug and he's going to explain this. It's a really cool story, and this will kind of show people that just what you had to do to, if you really wanted to find things out pre-internet.
Yeah. So Z-Rock was a nationally syndicated radio network. They played hard rock and heavy metal music. I think they came on in about the fall of '86, and it ran for about 10 years. Now there was affiliates all over the United States, and the station that I came across was in Portland, Maine, which is a state that borders the province that we live in. And I discovered the station on my way to Boston on a hockey trip. And if I remember correctly, the batteries in my Walkman died, but, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but you could still listen to the radio on your Walkman if your batteries were dead. So I was scanning the dial and I came across a station that was playing incredible hard rock and heavy metal music. Now, at the time, this was the spring of 1990. So I was big time into hard rock and heavy metal, just in just listening to it all the time, new music. There was a lot of great albums coming out. And I came across a station that was playing AC/DC and Iron Maiden and Metallica, stuff you didn't hear on the radio where we grew up. And I was just it was my mind was blown. So when I got home from that trip, I tried to pick up the station on my cassette deck that I had in my room, and it came in faintly, and I could usually only pick it up after 9 o'clock at night. It would start to come in, and it would be staticky, but you could hear enough that what the DJ was saying. And usually I tuned in on Sunday nights because they had a top 50 weekly countdown every Sunday night. And I wanted to listen to that because I've always loved countdowns. Yeah. So fast forward to the end of 1991, and I heard on Z-Rock when I was listening, they were advertising a top 1,000 all-time countdown. So this is pre-internet. So I wanted to get my hands on a copy of that countdown. So I sent a letter to Z-Rock World Headquarters, which was in Dallas, Texas. And I was trying to think back at how I would have gotten the address, but then from listening to some clips on YouTube, they were always giving their address out because they were selling T-shirts and posters and bumper stickers. Send X amount of money and we'll send it to you. So they were always giving their address. So I sent them a letter telling them how I discovered their station and all that kind of stuff, kind of the backstory, and then kind of forgot about it. And a couple months later, my mother comes to me and says, you got some sort of mail from Texas. What the hell's that? I was like, I don't know. So I opened it up, and there was this printed list of the Z-Rock 1000 from 1991. That's not the list that we're going to count down the top 300 from. I also got my hands on the 1990 list, and there were quite a few differences in those two lists. In the 1991 version, there was some alternative music and grunge music. Nirvana was big at the time, and they had started playing some of that stuff. But they were also playing AOR stuff like Boston and Foreigner and some Skynyrd and bands like Pink Floyd, more kind of that classic rock stuff, yeah, which isn't on the 1990 countdown. That's strictly hard rock and heavy metal. All 1,000 songs. I think Alice in Chains actually has one song from the 1990 version. Facelift would have just came out, and I think they had an entry in the 800s. But so anyway, Z-Rock, just a great station. Some of their slogans, it was really entertaining. Kind of their urine radio, what kind of the stuff you come back to from some commercials. They have like little anyway, really entertaining. So their slogans were, if it's too loud, you're too old, or we don't break for wimps. and Lock It In and Rip Your Knob Off, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really, really good programming. And that's kind of the story behind it. So I got the 1991 copy in 1992. I didn't get the 1990 version until about 2006 when I was on a Z-Rock message board. And Mike Payne, who was an on-air personality at Z-Rock, he was on this message board, and I told him I had the 1991 countdown. Anyway, he ended up sending me a paper copy of the 1990 version, which I have highlighted for,
That's
songs
so
I had.
awesome.
And you had to work for this stuff back then before the
Yep.
internet. And this 1991 list that I had gotten back then, it introduced me to a lot of bands and a lot of music because there was no rock radio where I lived. For instance, Montrose. I had never heard of Montrose in
I was going to say,
1992.
I think that's when we first had the discussion when we were doing our best of 1973 episode.
I think that's exactly where it came
Yeah.
from. So that's where I became aware of Montrose. And I had looked around the local music stores for the Montrose CD and I couldn't find it. And my brother was actually going to Montreal. I can't remember if he was going to see a concert or why he was going, but I said, can you keep a lookout for this CD from a band called Montrose? And 1992 would have been the same time that I think it was Bullet Boys did a cover of Rock Candy from Wayne's World.
That's
So
right. Yep.
everything was kind of coming together on the whole Montrose thing. He actually came home from Montreal with a copy of the CD, said, here you go. I laid eyes on it and I go, I think that's Sammy Hagar. I listened to it. I said, it is Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, you might look at it and go, what is this?
Yeah.
Just,
So that list, like I could probably list a handful more of bands that I had never heard of just because there's no internet, there's no rock radio. And I started, going through and getting information on these bands that I'd never heard of before that were on that list.
it's fantastic. And when I think of what you're describing with Z-Rock, about the only thing we had in our area was Saturday nights they would play pirate radio. Not literally pirate radio broadcasting from a ship, but that was the name of it. It was Lawn Friend. Before it was Lawn Friend, it was somebody called, I want to say it's not Shadow Stevens because he did the top 40, but
Yep.
somebody had Shadow in their name or something. But Lawn Friend eventually did it. And they would play all kinds of hard rock and metal. They would have interviews, really funny interviews, and they would have like you said, really funny liners and mock commercials and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it would be on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday night. But earlier than that, Sunday nights, you might remember Metal Shop, the only show with teeth. That was a syndicated radio program too. So yeah, and I can remember probably late 89. I'd seen like members of say Def Leppard or Skid Row. They'd have these shirts that said Z-Rock on them. So I was kind of aware what it was, but I
Right.
didn't really know what it was. And I think it was one Saturday night. I was, you'd listen to FM radio, right? But every once in a while you'd flip it over to AM because for some reason, well, because you know AM had its limitations sonically, but AM signals traveled much farther than FM signals. I mean, again, this is pre-internet. We're talking about terrestrial radio here. But I remember picking up a station. I have no idea where it was, but they were playing Z-Rock. And I think it's the first time that I ever heard New York Groove by Ace Frehley. Now, I wasn't a fan back then, but I knew he had a solo song called New York Groove. And again, before the internet, you might know a song exists, but you have no idea what it sounds like. And you have no way of finding out what it sounds like without buying it or unless you know somebody that has it. So if you want to learn things, you had to kind of do just what Andy's describing here. You had to sweat for it but it would never even occur to me to do that. I don't know why. It's just like I wonder now, why didn't I ever join a fan club? Never even occurred to me to join a fan
Yep.
club. People did
Me
it
neither.
all the
Yep.
time, and there was always fan club information inside every album that you bought.
For sure.
So what we've got here, folks, is we're not going to do the entire 1,000, but what we've decided to do is we're going to go from 300 all the way up to number one. We're going to do it in 2 episodes. So on this episode, we're going to go from number 300 up to number 151. And These were, how were these ranked? Do you know how these songs were ranked, or were they just slotted
I,
into place?
like any countdown, I'm not sure what the ranking system was. I do know that Panama by Van Halen is nowhere to be found on this, and I got to think that that's an oversight because if once we get into the countdown, I would have thought that Panama would have been top 50, top 100 based on the
Yeah.
other songs in here, but it has to be an oversight.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You'll hear some songs that you'd kind of expect to hear, then you'll hear some songs where you go, "Well, I wouldn't have thought of that song by this particular band." And then you might hear songs that you've never even heard of the group. So that's the fun of it, and that's exactly why we're doing this. And yes, so just a reminder, this is the 1990 version. You're not going to hear anything past, and you are going to hear a lot of the same bands again and again. So let's get started. Right off the bat, at number 300, we're starting off with kind of an obscure band. They were around in the late 70s through the middle half of the 80s, and I think they might be around in some form or another. But the band was called Axe, not Kick Axe, just Axe. And the song's called Rock and Roll Party in the Streets. Now, I have heard this song, and it's a pretty good song. It's a
Yep.
keyboardy kind of hard rock song. But I will say this, the name of the band and their album covers, and if you see what they look like, they're not nearly as heavy as they look.
No.
Sometimes they have some. I've listened to some of their other stuff. It's kind of almost kind of southern in a way. So
This is the only song I've heard by that
yeah.
band. Yeah.
But you mentioned Montrose. I do know this as well. They cover "I've Got the Fire." I do know
Okay.
that, but this is probably their best known song. I think it's from '82, and it's a good song. It's one of
Yeah.
those ones that would come on once in a while, and you'd go, "Oh yeah, this one."
Yeah.
So there you
299, we've got, speaking of heavy, Slayer, South of Heaven.
go. Yeah, a little bit of change up. When we say Southern, we don't mean like Southern rock here. Number 298. Now, this is a Kiss song that probably wouldn't make my top 300 if I was listening. I don't know. I like it, but it's kind of silly. Sorry. Calling Dr. Love. It's a classic. It's a Kiss classic. I would hate to play this for somebody that wants to know about Kiss. I would never start them with Calling Dr. Love, but that's
Right.
at number 298.
297, from Alice's first solo album, Welcome to My Nightmare, title track.
296. This is an interesting one. There are ballads in here, obviously. So we've got Poison and a song that would have been quite recent at this. It'd be the end of 1990. Something to Believe in by from Flesh and Blood.
295, someone should write a book about this band. Y&T, Don't Stop Running.
I've heard of them. Yeah, I mean this. I'd rate obviously I'd rate this higher. Of the I think there's two Y&T songs in this chart. I would have flip-flopped the positioning, but hey. Number 294 from the Peace of Mind album, Iron Maiden and Flight of Icarus.
293, Night Train, Guns N' Roses.
292, interesting choice. Crocus. This is from the album The Blitz and kind of a mellow song for them, Our Love.
291, and this is what's great about this countdown. The song Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, 291, not a single,
Yeah.
but one of those album tracks that just is
Yeah.
awesome. One of my favorite Aerosmith songs. So
Oh,
they're
it's
not just playing singles here. There's album tracks on here.
big time. Yeah. Number 290, always glad to see stuff from the first two. Bon Jovi from 1700 Fahrenheit, In and Out of Love.
Good Canadian band at 289. And as Bubble said, I'm not giving anyone an R.
Yeah.
Rock you.
Yeah. Uh, Number 288, Dancing and Mother.
Zeppelin 287, Over the Hills and Far Away.
But you already mentioned Panama. Like I'd put Panama in before I'd put 286, Pretty Woman, Van Halen. I like it, but come on,
Yeah.
Not Panama? Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they came up with the order of these, but Pretty Woman seems a little
Hey,
high.
they went through the trouble of doing it, so
Right.
we're happy to recite it. Yeah.
285, Motley Crue, 10 Seconds to Love.
Yeah, deep cut. As is 284, Metallica from Kill 'Em All and No Remorse.
Yeah, Metallica. So they had, I don't know how long it went on for, but every weekday evening they had half an hour show called Mandatory Metallica.
I've heard of that. So that's where that came from.
30 minutes of Metallica every
Yeah.
weeknight. I think it was like 8 o'clock every weeknight.
And keep in mind at the time that this countdown would have come out, this is pre-Black Album. So
Right.
it'd be all heavy stuff. Really
All
heavy.
heavy. Dokken comes in at 283, In My Dreams.
Number 282, another song from 1990, Rat, Lovin' You's a Dirty Job. I literally just, as we're filming this, I literally just picked up Detonator on vinyl.
Perfect. 281. So there were a few entries from the 60s. This is one of them. Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe, 281.
Yeah, some proto metal, as it were. Number 280, classic from 1980 from Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, Neon Nights.
279, the opener from the opening album, Def Leppard, Rock Brigade.
Yeah, good stuff. Number 278, it's either from High Voltage or it's the title song from TNT. It's AC/DC.
277, we've got Madeleine from Winger.
At number 276, Ozzy Osbourne, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll.
275, they're mixing in a little Christian metal. Striper, To Hell with the Devil.
Right in between Ozzy and 274, Wasp with Forever Free. That's actually not as drastic as it sounds. Forever Free is a ballad, I think, from the Headless Children album.
Exactly, yeah. 273 is Great White, House of Broken Love.
272, The Kings of Metal. I don't know a lot about this band, but they're very single-minded in their image. I've heard one of their albums, but not one that has this song. Manowar, and the song's called Defender. Now, what I do know about this song is this features a narration from the late Orson Welles.
Okay. Not a band I'm overly familiar with
Yeah.
either. And actually had never heard of them when I got this list. 271, we've got Kicks with Cold Blood.
Great song. Number 270 would have been over a year old at this point. Big comeback song for Alice Cooper and Poison.
269, a song many people thought was Led Zeppelin in disguise. We've got Kingdom Come with Get It On.
Yeah. Number 268, Megadeth covering the Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK.
We've got another Aerosmith. Another Aerosmith track at 267 with the old big 10-inch record.
Yeah, nothing. It's a pure song. Just straight. It's only dirty if you have a dirty mind.
No double entendres here.
Nothing. Nope. Number 266, all the way back to the first Black Sabbath album and NIB.
At 265, Kid Ego from the debut Extreme album.
Obviously, this is a U.S. list, so there's no CanCon considerations, but there is a little bit of Canadian. We heard some Helix now. At 264, it's Rush from Grace Under Pressure and Distant Early Warning.
263, more Crocus and Long Stick Goes Boom.
262, Motley Crue, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away.
261 from the Nuges debut album, Hey Baby.
Yeah, featuring the great Derek St. Holmes, I think, on this one. Yeah,
you got it.
Number 260 from Night Song, Cinderella, Somebody Save Me.
Which, while I was watching the Leafs lose last night to the Florida Panthers, they were playing that song between intermissions.
Oops. That's funny. Yeah.
259, Bullet Boys, Smooth Up In Ya.
Yeah. Subtle. This one is. Number 258, the song that started everything for Bon Jovi and Runaway.
257 from one of my favorite albums of all time, Back in Black. It's Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution.
256, this song would have been just kind of by itself. I believe this was from help me on this one. Where did this song come from? Guns N' Roses and Civil War. This is before the Use Your Illusions came out, but I know it got a lot of airplay because, I mean, it was new Guns N' Roses song. This one and Knocking on Heaven's Door both came out in summer of 1990, but
yeah,
I know that was on the Days of Thunder soundtrack. Civil War, I want to say it was some sort of benefit album.
It was, yeah. And I can't remember the name of remember the name of the benefit, but it was a benefit album.
Yeah, someone will let us know.
Yeah. 255, more Dawkin, Breaking the Chains.
254, there's that Y and T band again, with Summertime Girls. See, I would, yeah, the fact that, we don't have Mean Streak. Anyway, I'll zip it.
253 would have been a brand new song, Hard to Handle by the Black Crowes.
Not quite hard rock, but I do know that that first album, Shake Your Money Maker, they were in all the Circus and Hit Parader magazines.
Yeah.
Like it was, Um, and number 252, interesting choice. I believe this is from Jailbreak, Thin Lizzy and the Cowboy song.
251, some Van Halen, Hot for Teacher.
No, number 250, title song from their album Hall of the Mountain King. It's Sabotage.
Heavy there. 249, deep cut from Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich. It's Warrant and 32 Pennies.
Number 248, Def Leppard and Foolin'.
247, got some Bad Company, Ready for Love.
Number 246, Judas Priest with The Ripper.
A ripper. 245, more Zeppelin and Communication Breakdown.
From 69, but definitely pointing the way to the 70s for sure. And another 60s song at 244. I want to say this was from 65, 66, maybe. It was
Yeah.
Amboy Dukes and Journey to the Center of the Mind. Now, this was a minor hit, but mostly it's known because Ted Nugent was in the Amboy Dukes.
Yeah.
This doesn't
I'm thinking
sound
that.
this doesn't sound anything like what you might think of Ted. It doesn't sound anything like Ted Nugent. This is
No,
more psychedelic, if anything.
psychedelic. And I think that the only reason it's on the countdown was because Ted Nugent was in the
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
243 from 77, Aerosmith, Draw the Line.
Great song. Number 242 from Flying in a Blue Dream, Joe Satriani and Big Bad Moon.
241, we've got the Scorpions. I think this was 88, Rhythm of Love from
Yeah.
Savage Amusement.
Yeah. Another one from 88. Actually, we got another, number 240 from Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Iron Maiden, Can I Play with Madness?
Yep. And we've got more 88 at 239 with Revolution Calling from Queensryche.
238, we'll put this in the same category as Aerosmith's big 10-inch record, AC/DC and Big Balls.
Yep. 237, Black Sabbath featuring Ronnie James Dio, The Mob Rules.
And, of course, their former singer at 236, Ozzy Osbourne from Blizzard of Oz and Mr. Crowley.
We got Faster Pussycat at 235 with Babylon On.
Number 234, title song from their second or third album, a new wave of British heavy metal, Standby, Saxon, Denim, and Leather.
233, we got a ballad from LA Guns, and it's the Ballad of Jane.
Now, this is interesting. 232, Grand Funk Railroad, Walk Like a Man. I can only assume that's like the Supremes song, Walk Like a Man. I know they did a lot of covers, but
it's not a cover. It's subtitled Walk Like a Man, You Can Call Me a Man.
oh, okay, so it's an original song. Okay.
It is an original
I've
song,
never
and it is kind of a head scratcher at 232. It is a good song. I do like it, but I find it's maybe a little high on this countdown.
somebody made this up, must have been a Grand Funk fan.
Must have been. This was when they actually had Railroad in their title.
Right.
Van Halen at 231 with Finish What You Started from OU812.
230 from Pride, White Lion, and Wait.
229, we got more Wasp, Blind in Texas.
They must have had a lot of fun playing songs with Texas in the title, being that they were out of Dallas.
Right.
Number 228, it is scientifically proven you cannot have enough rat. Lay it down at 228.
And more Rush at 227, Free Will.
At number 226, UFO with Doctor Doctor.
225, we've got some heavy stuff with Accept and Balls to the Wall.
224, huge hit for Great White covering Ian Hunter's Once Bitten, Twice Shy.
223, we've got some more Dio, this time his solo band, Holy Diver.
At 222, an epic from Led Zeppelin from Physical Graffiti, Kashmir.
221, one of my favorite Tesla songs, Modern Day Cowboy.
Yeah. Now, at number 220, I'm not sure if they're considering this to be the 80 version or the 89 version. White Snake, Fool for Your Loving.
219, it would have been just released. It would have been John Bon Jovi, Blaze of Glory from Young Guns 2.
Yeah. 218, Cinderella. Now, I assume this is Bad Seamstress Blues slash Falling Apart at the Seams, because otherwise, Bad Seamstress Blues is just a little slide guitar intro. So I'm assuming they
Yeah,
mean the whole opening track.
I
Long Kick
think so.
Winner.
217, we've got Welcome Home Sanitarium from Metallica.
Number 216, another song right from 1990 from the first album, Stake It To You, Slaughter, and their ballad Fly to the Angels.
215 from 79, Highway to Hell. It's Girls Got Rhythm.
Number 214, back to the 60s for this one, Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are You Experienced?
213, we've got more Motley Crue. Too Young to Fall in Love.
212, Skid Row, and a song that would have been on the charts at the beginning of 1990, I Remember You.
And 211, we've got Rocket from Def Leppard.
210, another 1990 song. This interesting to see this here from Passion and Warfare, Steve Vai, and Erotic Nightmares. So this is the first instrumental that we've seen.
Yep, and that would have this would have been where I would have kind of discovered Steve Vai solo stuff with
Oh
the
yeah,
audience. They used to play the audiences listening in Erotic Nightmares all the time on Z-Rock.
really? I knew the
Yep.
audience was listening was a video, but that's good. That's cool.
209, we've got some more Canadian content with April Wine and Roller.
So that's veering close to AOR, but I mean, pretty heavy song, especially for the
Yep.
time for 78.
Yep.
Number 208, Ted Nugent and the Great White Buffalo.
207, Crazy Babies from Ozzy.
206, another song that was pretty rocking for its time, 1975. I think this was the title song to this album, Foghat, Fool for the City.
205, I think this was 1970, Easy Livin', Uriah Heep.
Number 204, Sammy Hagar from Standing Hampton, or the soundtrack of the same name, Heavy Metal.
203, we've got some Poison. Look what the cat dragged in.
202, the very first song from the very first Zeppelin album, Good Times, Bad Times.
201, we've got Kiss with Lick It Up.
Now we're at number 200, and this is a song that they did not write, but a lot of people associate it with them. Aerosmith, The Train Kept a Rolling.
199, we've got Guns N' Roses and Patience.
Number 198, all the way back to 1968, and Deep Purple's Hush.
197 from 1984, got Van Halen and I'll Wait.
Number 196, Judas Priest and Hellbent for Leather.
195, we've got Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath by Sabbath.
Okay, these next two, they must have put these next two in order for on purpose. And number 194, David Lee Roth and Yankee Rose.
And at 193, we've got Damn Yankees, Coming of Age, which again would have been released that
fairly
year.
new.
Yep.
Oddly enough, looking at there's no Night Ranger, but there's Damn Yankees.
Right.
Oh.
And in the 1991 list, I'm not sure how many Night Ranger there were, but I do know You Can Still Rock in America was on the 1991.
I was going to say, I mean, not all, maybe not all, but like You Can Still Rock an American, maybe Don't Tell Me You Love Me. But anyway, number 192. This is an artist that I know a lot of people like this guitar player, and he was fairly well known in the 70s. He played in Portland, Maine earlier this year because they were advertising his show when we were at the Vandenberg show. Robin Trower and Bridge of Sighs.
191, we've got more Rush from 77, Closer to the Heart.
190, Iron Maiden. I believe this is from Killers and Wrathchild.
And this is one I figured might have been higher on the list. We got more Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me at 189.
Always good to see Cinderella on a list. Number 188, Cinderella Coming Home.
187, second Bad Company album, Feel Like Making Love.
Number 186, some Nightmare on Elm Street 3 music, Dokken and Dream Warriors.
Back to the early 70s with some Alice Cooper, I'm 18.
At number 184, Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper.
Another newly released song, 183, is Cherry Pie from Warrant.
Number 182, we have Van Halen and When It's Love.
181, we've got more UFO, and I think, if I remember correctly, all the UFO, or a lot of the UFO they played was from the Strangers in the Night album. They
A
were
live
live
album.
versions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's Lights Out.
Number 180, this was the only top 40 single from Faster Pussycat, the ballad House of Pain.
179, we've got Metallica with the Four Horsemen.
Another ballad at 178, Whitesnake, Is This Love?
177, another song from the current 1990 year, Unskinny Bop from Poison.
Number 176, Judas Priest from 86 and Turbo Lover.
175 is Zeppelin, Heartbreaker, Livin' Lovin' Maid.
Can't play one without the other. Number 174, this would have been a hit in early 1990 from the Great Radio Controversy, Tesla, and Love Song.
173, Saxon is Just Let Me Rock.
I don't know that one.
I think it was from their 84 Crusader album. One that I
Okay.
hadn't heard of when the list came out, but one that I kind of hunted out, and it is a really good song. I like it a lot, but not one that's, very widely known unless you're a Saxon fan, I guess.
Yeah. I'm loving the variety though when they throw stuff like that in. Number 172 from Bent Out of Shape, Rainbow and Street of Dreams.
171, we got pre-Bad Company Paul Rogers, All Right Now from Free.
Number 170, debut single from Skid Row, Youth Gone Wild.
More Aussie at 169, Diary of a Madman.
Number 168, to me, this band doesn't get enough, nobody talks about, they broke down a lot of barriers because this was like rap metal when there was no such thing as rap metal. Faith No More and Epic.
Yep. 167, David Lee Roth and California Girls.
Number 166, Winger, Headed for a Heartbreak.
165, And the Cradle Will Rock from Van Halen.
Number 164, Rush from Moving Pictures, Limelight.
We've got Tears Are Falling at 163 from Kiss.
Number 162 from Sonic Temple, The Cult Firewoman.
161 is a great duet from Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne, Close My Eyes Forever.
At 160, this was a big hit for Kix, Don't Close Your Eyes.
159, we've got Aerosmith with Sheila?
It's Sheila, and I was surprised to see this. This is from Done with Mirrors.
Yeah.
It was a single, but it wasn't a hit. So somebody must have liked the song.
Yeah.
I think that's an overlooked album. Number 158, another groundbreaking song, still sounds good today. Living Color, Cult of Personality.
157, we've got Motley Crue and Dr. Feelgood.
Number 156, an album that came out like late summer, if not September of 1990. So very recent, Queensryche and Empire.
155, Humble Pie, 30 Days in the Hole.
Yeah, this song's been covered by a lot of people. Kick Axe did a version of it, and Mr. Big did a version of it, and seems to me somebody else did it too, and it's escaping me. But anyway, yeah. Okay, number 154, a great song, comeback song for Deep Purple from Perfect Strangers, Knocking at Your Back Door.
153, Europe, The Final Countdown.
Number 152 from Out of the Cellar, Rat, and Back for More.
151, Down Boys from Warrant.
And that is where we are going to end side one, part one of this episode. And we're going to pick the rest starting at 150 tomorrow. So the Z-Rock Top 300 Songs 1990 version. Hope you're enjoying this. If you like this episode, you're definitely going to want to tune in to see what the rest of the chart looks like. Basically, we'll be right back on Tim's Vinyl Confessions.